The conversation that Jesus had about worshipping God in spirit and in truth took place with a woman by a well in Samaria. Jesus had stopped by the well, he was very tired. The disciples went off into the town to buy food, and this woman turned up, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." And they had a conversation. She was very surprised. And after a bit, Jesus said, "Would you go and call your husband and come back?" And she said, "Oh, I don't have a husband." And he said, "You're quite right. You've had 5 men, and you're on man number 6, and this guy is not your husband anyway." She then said, "Oh, I can see you're a prophet," and immediately went off on the subject of worship. So for her, it was an attempt to get the subject off something which was really rather difficult. And she said, "Where should we worship, Jerusalem or here?" To which Jesus said, "Well, genuine worship should be done in spirit and in truth." The words are a little bit hard to understand, so I had a good look to translate, and I got 2 proposals. One, the hour is coming and now is when genuine worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and genuineness, because that word comes twice. Or if you prefer the word truth, then the hour is coming and now is when truthful worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Either way, I think it adds up to the same thing, which is God is not impressed with your worship if your life is not right. And that reminds us of some words that Jesus spoke on another occasion, recorded for us in Matthew, which go as follows. "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' that is, not all worshippers, will come into the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven." Do you see, once again, we see this, that God is interested in us doing his will. Can we read on, because I think the next words are rather important for our subject. "Many will say to me in that day," he says, "Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many powerful things in your name? And then I'll declare to them, 'I never knew you. Go away from me, you workers of lawlessness.'" So it's possible to be very gifted in spiritual gifts, in casting out demons and all these things, and actually not be doing God's work at all, because you're not really in tune with God's will. And I think this is rather important for us, because it's very easy for us to form our views based on people of repute, speakers who come, perhaps international speakers or leaders of denominations who say things, and there they are in front of us, and we form our views on what they say. But it is possible for such people to not actually be leading us in the right way at all. We need to hold on to that and make sure that our theology and our views and our beliefs about what God wants are based on what Jesus said and not what today's leaders say. Let's go back to John chapter 4. To me, this chapter is all about a contrast between the two, the woman in her problematic state who needed to sort out her life, and Jesus who, let's face it, if anyone was a bona fide worshipper of God, it was Jesus. God thought very highly of him. And further down the chapter, when the disciples come back, they say, "Master, have something to eat." And he said, "I have food to eat of which you know nothing." And they said, "Oh, what food is this?" And he said, "It is my food to do the will of the one who sent me and to finish his work." So there we have it. If you want to be a really good worshipper of God, find out what God wants you to do and do it. And I believe that is your worship. And I don't think any of this singing of songs or intercessions, there's no record of Jesus ever doing any of that kind of thing. I don't think that's where it's at all.